testing the microphone and Sean's levels on his computer and shit.
So unless you're singing the whole time, that's pretty horrible.
Hello and welcome to 5 on the 5, where 5 guys talk about a game under $5. This week we talk about the punishingly hard strategy game 1994's X-COM UFO Defense, or X-COM something else if you were in Europe. Starting today... Jordan, I expected you to make your enemy unknown joke again.
Sorry, I was not prepared.
That's
okay.
Of it.
That's okay. Starting today, that's a stupid introduction. This is the Robo So Nice, they named him twice, Double Robo, a.k.a. Sean, here as your host. And joining me today, I have the man with no plan, Danger Whisk, a.k.a. Josh.
Wait, XCOM, I thought we were playing SexCOM STD Defense. Did I play the wrong game?
Oh.
Yes. Yes, you did play the wrong game, and unfortunately a much more lifelong commitment than this. I also have with me... Yeah, everybody loses at that game. Yeah. Oh, God. I also have with me the nagging Nancy and overprepared Oliver, Night Train, a.k.a. Jordan.
Happy to be here, happy to be nagging and overprepared.
And this is what happens when you let him write his own intros. And I also have with me the goateed master of nonsense, the headhunter, a.k.a. Skylar.
Greetings, subjects.
You always have the creepiest fucking thing to say at the beginning. Also with me...
It's the goatee.
Right?
It is.
I'm going to go with that. Also with me, I have Broseph Stalin, leader of the Broviet Union, subtotal Broom, a.k.a. Evan.
Hey guys, what's up?
That's what happens when you let Jordan write everyone's intros.
4 million people partied over his 7-year regime. It's terrible.
Yeah. Oh.
All right, so just at the top of the show here, I want to give people a reminder. We have lots of ways for you to get involved with the show. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/5on5gamingpodcast. And you can like that page. We'll get updates there about when we're streaming, especially if you hate Twitter like I do.
That's right. Those are the numbers 5, by the way. It's numeral 5, not typed out 5.
Yeah, number 5. Also, you can follow us at twitter.com/5on5podcast. Again, numbers. And you can also email us at 5on5podcast@gmail.com. So, especially if you're playing along with us, if you're playing the games with us, I'd love for you to send us an email. Let us know how your experience went. And we'll read it on the show.
Yeah, we could discuss their opinions during the show, and that would be pretty cool for people. And
give
us new things to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. And if you have something you want us to, like a mechanic you want us to talk about or something, put it in an email. So, starting out today, we are going to take a trip on down to the Situation Room, which I have to get news music for that. That's a good reminder. So, we are entering the Situation Room. I wanted to call it the No Spin Room, but I don't hate you that much. Skylar, situate us in what was happening in 1994 when XCOM UFO Defense came out.
Oh, man. Well, Sean, we have a strong list this year.
Jeez.
A very strong list. Event-wise, the list is not that strong. Some lotteries were introduced, some tornadoes broke out. There was a serial killer, but nothing very exciting. The real excitement comes in our popular television shows. Beavis and Butthead.
Yes.
America's favorite, funniest home videos. The Rugrats and their Hanukkah special. The X-Files. And one thing that you might find interesting, Sean, is that $4.08 was all you had to pay for a movie ticket in 1994.
$4.08. Wow. I like the 8 cents on the end.
Apparently, it's important. As well as a loaf of bread costing $1.59.
Uphill both ways in the snow.
So one thing that you were talking about, Josh, that I want to jump back, or not Josh, one thing you were talking about, Skylar, that I want to jump back on was X-Files. And this is actually, I think I have this in the trivia somewhere. But
yeah, I put it in the trivia.
Yeah, the developers of XCOM actually attributed X-Files being so popular as one of the reasons that XCOM kind of took off. Because you are playing very much like a more militarized version of the X-Files team. So I thought that was
I was
kind
going
of
to say, it's
interesting.
almost like they took the X from X-Files and put it in the name.
I mean, the game had, the game was released before the TV show came out, but they like came around at the same time. So some of the developers were kind of joking that a lot of their popularity in in North America came from the fact that people would watch the TV show and then play something very similar in the game.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's pretty cool.
That was kind of interesting. Okay, so Jordan, you want to hit us with the history segment here, talking about a little bit about where this game came from?
Sure. So it was originally created by a small British gaming company called Mythos Games as a sequel to its 1988 tactical shooter called Laser Squad. And it was published around the same time and with the same company as the original Civilization. And XCOM and Civilization... Yeah, Laser Squad was the original.
No, I was gonna make the joke that Laser Squad was the name of my Devo cover band in the early '80s.
I was gonna make the joke that now I understand where Major Laser came from.
What?
There we go.
That makes no sense.
Sure it is. You've got a laser squad. They
joke.
need a major. Whatever.
No. In the screenshot on Wikipedia, the only person I see is Corporal Red Fax.
Oh, my God.
Okay, sort of continue on with the history.
All right, so it's widely considered one of the defining games in the strategy game genre. It's ranked as one of the top computer games on many lists, if not the top. IGN ranked it the top PC game ever created in 2000 and 2007. So everybody who's pretty much played any strategy game knows that this is kind of pretty defining. It's definitely the Mario, if you will, of the kind of strategy world. It was widely praised for the atmosphere, as well as the difficulty, which is, I know, something we're all going to talk about. It also praised the ability that where you could work with and experiment with the alien technology, and create your own kind of stuff. And as something we'll also talk about, it spawned a remake in XCOM Enemy Unknown, which was created by Firaxis and published by 2K, which are the same people who do Civilization now. And XCOM Enemy Unknown, the one that was just released, originally was just going to be like a flat remake. They were just going to kind of update everything with a new engine, new graphics. But as they were working on it, they kind of changed it up and made it into the game that it is. So that's history.
Yeah. Just one clarification I want to make for our European listeners. We will be calling this game XCOM UFO Defense. I know that the old one and the new one are both called XCOM Enemy Unknown in Europe. So if you hear us say Enemy Unknown, that'll be us talking about the new game.
The new one.
And then if we say XCOM, that'll probably be in reference to the old one. The other thing that I want to talk about is we are going to have a segment where we talk about the new game, because we've all either played the new game or at least played the demo to see kind of how it got updated. And they give you a pretty gratuitous piece of the game in the demo. They give you like 2 or 3 missions, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the demo's quite good.
Yeah, so you get enough time to figure out how it all works.
The naming thing could be kind of confusing for our European contingent, and yes, we could actually go through all the trouble of saying it right for you, but we're Americans. We don't do that. What are you talking about?
We learned from StarCraft and League of Legends tournaments. Nobody cares about Europeans.
But Korean listeners, we'll say it in Korean for you.
Well, that's okay. Korean listeners get more screwed. That's true. Anyway, so just so people know, we're gonna try and refrain from talking about the new game throughout the entire show. We're gonna treat XCOM 1994 as its own game until we get to the piece where we're going to talk about like what would we need to do to update this game, because it's kind of already been updated. So we're going to kind of change that segment a little bit. Yeah, Firaxis already beat us to it, and we're going to talk about that. But so I'm going to do a quick story segment, and then I got a question for everybody. But let me start with just kind of some basic information about the story. I mean, the actual storyline. Yeah, I was going to say the actual storyline itself is aliens are invading and you are defending. GLHF.
That's right.
You have to defend. It has a very 1950s style, like a 1950s creature feature type alien invasion story. There are lots of different types of aliens, but they all look pretty 50s sci-fi. The sectoid is just a standard gray alien with big eyes and better aim than it should have from that fucking house 300 yards away. The snake men are really tough units that work with chrysalids who melee attack your soldiers and then turn them into zombies, which also spawn more chrysalids, which attack your soldiers and then turn them into zombies, which also spawns more chrysalids.
Yeah.
And that's always fun. The floaters are flying units that can avoid your line of sight pretty easily, and they guide around Reapers. Mutons are kind of the iconic thing from this game. They're big, heavy soldiers. that come in 2 colors, because we all know that if they're different colors, that means one is stronger. And they team up with the celatids, I don't know how to say that, which shoot acid, and the silicoids, which are giant moving rocks, which weirdly reminded me of all of the alien designs in this reminded me of FTL, if people played that. Like the different alien types. Because sectoids look like things in that game, and so do the silicoids. Anyway, and then ethereals are super strong psychic soldiers, and they're kind of the leaders of everything. Your goal is to defend countries.
My favorite unit. Sean,
What?
You skipped an amazing unit.
What did I skip?
Cyber disc.
Oh, the
that's
disc.
right.
Oh, god damn it.
And then, of course, at the end, there's the alien brain, which is a giant brain. And you
Yeah,
fight it.
I obviously didn't get that far, but thanks for bringing that in, Josh. That's a good point. Your goal is to defend countries from UFO attacks and abductions, so that the countries will keep funding you. This seemed kind of ridiculous to me, because why would they pull out funding? Do they think they can do better? I don't understand why they wouldn't just give me the funding when I have alien ships, and they're going to try and hoof it on their own, I guess. I don't know. So basically you're trying to defend stuff by upgrading your soldiers, building new gear, creating bases, crafting defense ships, all while balancing a budget tighter than Jordan's mom.
Whoa.
Oh,
Hey,
wow.
now, hey,
And
now.
suddenly there goes the explicit rating. We are now adults.
Wow. Unnecessary.
Holy crap.
That's also Evan's mom, I'll hope you know.
Yeah, Jordan and Ben, you just insulted almost half the podcast.
That's my favorite part about making an insult about Jordan's mom, is that it's really Jordan and Evan's mom, which is even better.
She's a very classy lady, though, for all you listeners.
There are 2 essential parts of the game: the Geoscape, which is the real-time worldwide map showing you bases and incoming UFOs and crashes, and then the Battlescape, which is the turn-based strategy piece of the game. And it was pretty unique in the time for splitting between those 2, real-time and turn-based piece of it. In the Battlescape, you have time units that limit your movement and your ability to shoot. And when you kill all of the aliens, you get a screen with a score meant to drive you closer to insanity and rage, because it's impossible to get a good score, at least if you're me. This game is famous for being ridiculously hard, and some attempts have been made to mod the difficulty either easier or even more difficult if you're really good at it. The most famous is called X-COM Util, which is a third-party program you can run to tune the difficulty kind of behind the scenes. I think Josh is going to talk a little bit about difficulty later on anyway. And kind of like how the back end stuff works. But the question that I wanted to start with, because usually we ask who played this game when it came out, and I don't think anybody played this game. So the question I want to ask is, what is
I think
everyone's?
we were all around 4 years old.
Yeah, we were all 4 or 5.
I was
so,
playing
and Evan
I was
was
1.
And Kid Picks.
Yeah, Evan was 1.
I was 1. If I was even 1 by then.
Evan
Yeah.
was in the
Wait.
womb.
Is it
Yeah.
Evan Jordan's older brother, I thought?
What? No.
No.
Wait, is this a
My
joke
whole
or-
life is a lie.
Evan.
Gosh.
Evan might
is
be
about
older in
2.5 years
maturity
younger than
level.
me.
Evan's older in
Wow.
maturity level,
Hey
but he's
now.
younger.
Uncalled for.
Okay, anyway.
Okay,
No idea.
so the question that I want to start with is, what's everyone's kind of history with strategy games in general? Because I know we all kind of come to this from a different place. I mean, I think for me, I've always been really drawn to turn-based strategy, so like Final Fantasy Tactics Advance on the Game Boy Advance, I played for probably 200 hours. Multiple times I played through it. I love that game. I love Final Fantasy X. I like that kind of strategy, like turn-based battle strategy. I have some history with real-time strategies, like I like StarCraft. I played a lot of Command & Conquer and Red Alert when I was younger, that kind of stuff. But I'm really, really drawn to turn-based strategy. I'll try anything that's turn-based strategy. So that's kind of where my thing coming from this is. Josh, what's kind of your history with strategy games?
I kind of varied. I definitely played a lot of the turn-based, RPGs, a lot of the Final Fantasies and stuff like that. I played a lot of real-time strategy as a kid, Command & Conquer, Warcraft 1, 2, and 3. And then when I really started getting into turn-based strategy was Advanced Wars for the Game Boy Advance.
Oh, yeah.
Before they actually pulled it due to the 9/11 references that before 9/11, which I didn't know about. I managed to score a copy while in New York on vacation once, and then it was just a torrid love affair of me logging hundreds and hundreds of hours in that game. So after that, I was pretty hooked and played all the Advanced Wars, and then moved on to the Fire Emblem games and that such. So I have some knowledge of it, but it didn't come till later. It wasn't as a kid for sure.
Okay, Skylar, kind of what's your history with it?
I'm pretty similar to Josh. As a kid, I wasn't really into strategy that much. I played Warcraft 3, and that was the big strategy game I probably played. But since then, I'm going to spin this a little, because in addition to being a strategy game, XCOM is also can be considered a roguelike game. And I play tons of roguelike games all the time, like NetHack.
Do you want to talk about what a roguelike game is really quick, Skylar?
Let's mention what it is.
In like one sentence, yeah.
Okay, well, basically, a roguelike game is based on having random levels, permanent death when you die, which XCOM doesn't have, and
it does it in Iron Man.
Right, and then turn-based movement is really common as well, even though there are a lot of roguelikes that have broken that. But yeah, so involves every time you go into a battlescape, it's always different. Every time you play XCOM, it's going to be a different game, and yeah, so that's what a roguelike basically is. But I've played all of them, from like NetHack, which is like one of the original, which is based on the original roguelike called Rogue, to like the Binding of Isaac, which was really recent.
The original roguelike Rogue.
Yep. Well, I mean, yeah, which was in 1980, so this definitely was way after that.
Well, kind of one of the hallmarks of roguelike games is being really, really difficult and predicated on the fact that you're going to keep trying it over and over again. So the difficulty comes from like dying and then getting better at that piece of it and getting better at the whole game. You know, kind of like how, you know, you don't expect to beat the whole game of Pac-Man every time you play it. It's not like Final Fantasy where you're going to get through to
Maybe
the end.
you
no
don't, but you don't dream big.
Yeah, no, yeah, they're based on trial and error very thoroughly, and like they're based on exploration and frequently not knowing what things do and having to experiment with them in order to figure it out is another very large part of roguelikes.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Evan, what's your history with strategy games?
I'm kind of on the same boat as everyone else. Like Skylar, I played Warcraft. I even played Warcraft with Skylar and Jordan back in the day, probably 5 or 6 years ago even now.
Luther Party!
Yeah. And, you know, I've never really been very into strategy games. I'm really ADD, and I don't really have the patience for strategy games. Probably the biggest turn-based game I've played, maybe like other than Final Fantasy, is like Rome Total War.
Oh yeah.
And that's I mean, that's not a very easy turn-based game either. But yeah, coming into XCOM, I kind of had no idea what I was doing because I don't really attract myself towards those kinds of games. So it was definitely an experience for me.
I didn't know that Rome Total War was turn-based. That's interesting.
It's both. Yeah. It's like XCOM in that all the Total War games are like this. That like your empire management is turn-based, but then when you actually get into a battle, it's real time.
So yeah, you would like it, Sean.
It's kind of cool.
You would like
it.
I forgot to mention
it's on my list of games
is
to check
another
out.
turn-based games.
Yeah.
Civilization is another turn-based game I think we've all played. I assume that's what Jordan was going to talk about because he plays the crap out of those games.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jordan, you want to talk a little bit, or do you want Skylar to just talk about you?
I mean, if you guys want to talk about me,
who doesn't want to talk about Jordan? Let's be honest.
That's right. I would say
Sean's case, Jordan's mom.
I hate you guys. So I'm actually pretty different from all of you because strategy games are like my thing. So I've been playing strategy games since forever. Like I've been playing Civilization since back to Call to Power, which was like 97 or 98, something like that. So I played a ton of Civilization games. I've owned all of the Total War games since like the original Medieval, which goes back to that time. So strategy games are really my thing, which was interesting because I was excited to play this game because it's so kind of like defining for the strategy game genre. But I really had a lot of issues with it, which was kind of interesting. But no, strategy games, like I am a big, more so than any other genre. All of my, all my hours are logged into Total War games, other kind of strategy games like that. So turn-based and real time.
You heard it here, folks. Night Train playing strategy games before they were cool.
Wait, that's cool now.
Pretty much accurate.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so it sounds like we all have some pretty good history. I mean, maybe Evan doesn't have as much if it's not really your thing, but that'll be interesting to talk about once we get into the actual game. I kind of want to start. With Evan. Why don't you talk a little bit about kind of the overworld strategy? Because I think that was the hardest part for me to wrap my head around. Was like, what do I build? what do I research? How many scientists do I need? Like, that kind of stuff was the hardest for me to grasp. So why don't you go for that?
I agree completely. Especially because what the first thing I thought of when I got in this kind of game was the Total War style, where you have to manage multiple things around a certain area not in a turn-based system, but that you have to be able to manage, multiple bases, and like basically you have to be able to save the entire world from UFO attacks. And it's my problem that I had with it is that you get a certain amount of money when you start the game, and you pick a spot to build your base, and then you're just given a certain amount of money every month. And so after my first month, I had probably done a couple missions, and I built a new base. Like, I built my first base in like South America, and then I moved my second base to Europe. And like once I hit the end of my second month, the entire world hated me. Yeah. And they cut my funding in half. Like, I literally went from getting it like $4.3 or $4.4 million to $2 million.
I call that Jordan Coulter the RPG.
What's all this? Goodness.
Let's be honest here. He's not worth that much.
Anyway, okay, keep going, Evan.
But yeah, like there are so many aspects of the base part of the game where you have a laboratory, you have engineers, you have scientists, you have soldiers you have to keep track of. You have like allotted 50 spaces in a laboratory, and you have to have a certain amount of scientists doing research on something, especially if it's a big like alien technology, or else you'll never make any progress. And like it's really hard, because especially when you're supposed to just kind of figure out the game on your own, like when that's kind of the point of the game, is to figure out like how things work. Like, I'll have 10 scientists researching something for so long, for days and days and weeks even, and like nothing will get out of it. And I think my hardest part was being able to manage all the bases, because once you start getting more bases and you get like radar systems and stuff, the more UFOs you see, the more times you have to send out soldiers, the more times you have to intercept UFOs, the more you do, the difficulty just grows exponentially, I think. Yeah. In the fact that you have to be able to macro and micro manage everything all at the same time.
So how did people kind of approach figuring out the overworld stuff?
Well,
I don't want to hear about this.
Here's the thing I found out after is when I started playing, I had no idea what to do, because it clicks new game, and then all of a sudden
language
pop,
and then go. Yeah.
Right, new game, language, go, and then suddenly you're in the overworld, and it doesn't even tell you to like build a base. It's just like, here's the globe, and you don't find out to build a base until you click. And then once you build a base, it's like, the game reminded me of like a really obstinate child at times, who is like, they're like, do you want to play a game? And I'm like, yeah. And then they're like, too bad. And I'm like, really? And it's like, fine, you can play a game. What do you want to play? I'm like, I want to play build a base. It's like, no. It's like, it didn't tell me at all what I was supposed to do, and I was really, really confused. And then I found out later that when you bought the game back in 1994, it came with a roughly 250-page manual.
I read the entire manual.
Jordan read the entire manual.
Right.
I can tell you, having read the entire manual, it doesn't get much clearer.
No, but like the point is, it came with like a 250-page manual. Like, the thing's friggin' massive. It could be like a Dean Koontz novel. It's huge. Like, and I feel like that was necessary. And having bought the game on Steam for $4.99, it didn't come with that.
Yeah, actually it did, Josh.
Did it really?
Bad. Yeah, I had to go to the store page. If you go to the store page and go to the bottom right of the store page, you can click view the manual and view the entire manual.
Well, you know what? Screw that noise.
Which I told all of you about, Josh.
Exactly right. You see a huge departure, though, from old games and new games, where old games, really just kind of thrust you into the action, And, new games handhold you. I can't tell you how many times in Halo, when you start every single Halo game, it goes, look at the pretty lights. This is how you reload. This is how you jump. Or
let's talk about that though.
That's because people got lazy about reading manuals. Old games used to come with manuals that had pictures, were really long, were really in depth, and the manual was a big part of the game. Whenever I used to buy a game when I was a kid, the first thing I'd do when I was in the car on the way home was open up the game and look through the manual to see all the cool stuff I was going to get to do.
Wait, one sec. We have to divorce nostalgia from better. Because I don't think that being nostalgic about something means that it's better, and just because it was older and people are lazier now or whatever is better. I don't think that manuals went away because people didn't want to read them. I think manuals went away because we got good enough technology that you could integrate that into the game.
Exactly.
I don't know about that though.
I don't know about that either.
There's a lot of games with look at the original Warcraft. Warcraft 1 and 2. They all had that kind of tutorial phase where the first couple missions taught you how to play, but they always came with a manual, that was more full of lore than anything else.
And more details about everything.
I think the thing is
but they came with lore because you couldn't do storytelling in the game the same way. When you
I
can
don't
have
agree with
you
that.
can have a 10-minute cutscene in Halo 4, you don't need a manual to tell you about Chief's history because you can integrate it into the game.
But I don't agree with that. Look at the original Final Fantasy games, or any RPG. They were chock full of story.
The Zelda manuals, the N64 Zelda manuals were ridiculous.
I think
they were colored picture books.
I think what Sean's trying to get at is that manuals went from being necessary to being kind of an addition. When I think back to the Warcraft 3 manual, it was cool because it told you what the buildings and things did, and it also had that lore there, but you could play the game just fine without having to read the manual.
The manual was more of a reference guide than instructions on how to play the game.
And I think that's I think that's the transition we're kind of talking about. And I think that was for the better. I don't necessarily agree that we stopped putting manuals in because it's lazy. I think there are times where if I want to boot up a game, or if I want to do a D&D or something, I want to sit down and read the manual and micromanage everything and min-max everything. And there's times where I just want to hop into a game, you know what I mean, and hop in and play. And so I kind of did that with X-COM because that's what I do with most strategy games, recognizing I'm not going to have a good idea of what I'm doing. I hop in, I see what happens. Of course, I usually fail miserably, but then I kind of get the feel of it. But what was kind of annoying about this one is that even having read the entire manual, it goes through, it tells you what all the little X's and circles are, it tells you what all the buttons do, it still felt pretty nebulous, and that was annoying to me. It wasn't game-breaking, but it was annoying.
I was about to ask,
so is that a design limit? Is that a design problem or a technology limitation?
Yes and no. I mean, I think, and I know Skylar and I have gone back and
I like how I
this.
asked you an is it this or this question, and you responded with yes or no.
I was really confused. What does that even mean?
It's yes or no to both, is what I'm trying to say.
That's what I thought you were saying.
Yes or no, or yes or no.
If God, I hate you guys. God, now I even lost my train of thought.
Jordan's talking about how it's a design limitation because he thinks that the game didn't teach you enough information to give you the ability to play the game.
No.
That's what you're talking about, right?
More or less.
I think derailed.
Yeah, the train has been derailed. I think it was fun to walk in and have it be kind of nebulous. Okay, you don't really know the threat that you're facing. You don't really know. You grab an alien plasma rifle and you have no idea what it does. You know what I mean? I recognize that some of that was to a point, and I recognize that's what a lot of people like about it. The problem is that after reading that manual and everything, I still didn't know even the stuff that I felt like I should know what it did. You know what I mean? I felt like it was both a design limitation and something that was supposed to be there, but it just ended up kind of failing in my opinion. I don't know.
Even though later you discovered that there was a UFOpedia that told you everything about the items you currently have, which nullifies your point about it being a design limitation, because that did exist.
That was helpful, but by the time I got there and by the time I read the manual, I was already kind of I don't know what the word is. I was kind of thrown off by the game already. You know what I mean?
And that goes back to what Josh was saying, is that people don't expect to have to use manuals before they play the game to not get thrown off by them nowadays.
Right.
But that's true. That's true. I just think there was a limit. I walk into games like this all the time without the manual, expecting to be confused. The problem was, it didn't give me anything.
But you don't walk into games like this because you don't play games from 1993. You're playing newer games.
94! Get it
94.
right.
Newer games where it's built around not needing the manual necessarily and giving you that sense of not knowing what you're doing, even though there's no manual.
Well,
this game wasn't intended to do that.
Here's the thing for me. Is and I'm not going to get to difficulty yet, but I feel like a lot of XCOM's difficulty just came from not knowing what I was doing at all. When you get to like the battle screen, right? You know, the actual ground missions and everything. Each of your soldiers has at least 10 different little buttons with options for things to do. But if you hover your mouse over them, it doesn't even tell you what they do. So you have to go by the little picture. And the little pictures are vague. Like the picture for full auto and semi-auto fire look almost exactly the same. The same as the picture for kneel and hunker down, which one, puts your guy into defensive cover and the other, gives your guy a better shot, look almost the same, and they're right next to each other. And I can't tell you how many times I had a clear shot lined up, I kneeled for the shot, and it turned out I accidentally hunkered down and wasted the rest of my turn. It was like, And
and this is where the manual would have helped you. Well, because the manual does tell you what all those things are.
Even past the manual, though, there are little things that could have helped, like tooltips. Like if I mouse over a button and it says hunker down, even if I don't know what hunker down is, I know that it's different from kneel.
I agree, but since they expect you to read the manual, they don't need that because you have it already.
Yes, they
with
do.
You. It's
That's
just like a
bad
tooltip.
design, Skylar. That's bad design. Saying that you have to memorize you have to memorize the very specifically bizarre difference between these two tiny pictures that you can barely see on your 640 by 480 monitor. Like saying that you have to memorize the difference between those two and look back at the manual 12 times until you know what the difference is does not make sense. Yes, it does, because you're saying that you shouldn't have a way to tell it in game.
Well,
and I think it's fine to have a manual. It's fine to have a manual to tell you what to do. But what you should do is have a little like box that's that's somewhere else on the UI, where if you click on something, it tells you the name of that thing, so that you can read in the manual what it does once. And then after that, you can just make sure you're clicking the right button every time.
Well, and here's the other thing, though, is we're looking at this from a 2012 perspective.
That's what I'm saying,
But I'm not saying in terms of design. Here's the thing. Back in 1994, when you got the game, you got the big, heavy paper manual. And I don't think there's necessarily anything bad about having it open while you're playing. I used to do that with Diablo 2, because there were crafting recipes
I did that with
back.
Pokemon, because I couldn't remember what was good against what all the time.
Well, right. And you keep it open on your desk in front of you while you play. The difference is now we're buying a game on Steam. And if I want to access the manual, I have to open it from Steam, which means I have to Alt-Tab out of my game every time I want to check it.
Or print out the 200 pages.
Right, or print out the 200 pages, And it's very different when you had a physical copy of the manual, then maybe it wasn't so killer, And
that's what I'm
the first
saying.
couple times you could play through it, with the manual open, and after a while you get used to it. But now it's not easy to do. It's just kind of counterintuitive.
Well, and I want to go back to something that Josh said a little earlier, maybe to move us off the manual thing a little bit, because I think what Josh just said right there probably is a point we could all agree on, that having the manual in front of you probably eliminates a lot. I mean, that was what was really annoying to me, is having to Alt-Tab out of everything and things like that. But something Josh said that I thought of as I was playing through this is that he said a lot of the difficulty comes from just being confused and unsure about things. And that was something that I really noticed too. One of the biggest things is that I felt like a lot of the time I was guessing on things I shouldn't have to. I recognize the role of the randomness in the game, and we'll talk about that. But like, if I had a soldier and he's sitting there like in the middle of an open field, and I know there's an alien kind of up on a second story building, and the way that the game works for anyone who hasn't played it is every move that your soldier makes takes a certain number of time units, and then doing things like turning and crouching and shooting takes up those time units as well. And once you expend all your time units, that's done what the soldier could do for that turn. So what I felt like a lot of the difficulty came with was just being unsure of kind of what I could do. So, like, if I had a soldier in that open field, I could maybe vaguely guess if I was able to get him into cover with the number of time units he had. But oftentimes I was just like, well, I have no idea. So I would try and move him there, and then I'd end up 3 turns or 3 tiles away from the end, and then he'd get shot because he was out in the open because I had no idea that I couldn't make that distance. You know what I mean?
Or if you're trying to move in... Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, it happened a lot with that. Sorry.
I don't know who Josh was telling. Go ahead.
Me neither.
Jordan should finish.
I'll just finish my point in a sentence here. So, and that would happen a lot too with like cover. Like, I wasn't entirely sure oftentimes if I was in cover or if it was in line of sight, or so like I'd see an alien somewhere and be like, okay, I want to get a guy to try and kind of flank that position. But then again, not only would I have no idea if I had enough time units to get to that position, but then I wouldn't know if there was a clear line of sight. Especially when you got around things with like the half cover and the trees and then the heights with the hills. I just had no idea what was
the hills were confusing.
Oh, I just had no idea. So a lot of times I felt like I would get my guys killed or blown up or whatever just because I was playing in the dark when I shouldn't have to be. So that's
or like you'd move somebody and then they wouldn't have line of sight, so you'd have to move somebody to like one square to the left of them and realize you have line of sight from there. And that, like,
Right.
it became like you ended up wasting one or two characters' turns just simply based on the fact that you had to figure out where your line of sight was, and they were also
and
in the middle of nowhere.
you did have the ability to reserve time units, which did help. But like
Right.
it would have been
Except
nice
when
if
it
you-
didn't
if
work.
You could,
Well, right, and that
Well, yeah,
was the thing,
it
is,
was
like, you
kind
had
of
the
finicky.
option, like, to move and shoot was one of the options. So it would, in theory, not let you use too many time points to where you
right,
still had
exactly.
room
That's the
to shoot.
reserving thing.
But
Except it
I
totally
would turn
would.
that on, and then I'd run my guy forward, and then it would turn out with the reservation he wouldn't get nearly to the range he needed.
right.
So it was a waste of time units. But then if I tried to move him forward, it would be the game would like physically fight me and say, "No, you reserve these units. You can't have them." And it's like, but now I'm not in position.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, you can unclick the button and move.
I
but
mean,
yeah.
right? But it's like,
But it would have
It
been
was-
nice if, like in Civilization, where you put your mouse somewhere, it tells you how many turns it takes your unit to
Yeah.
move
Exactly.
there. It'd be nice if you
Yes.
put your mouse somewhere and it would say how many time units it takes to move somewhere.
Yeah.
That was my
also, Josh,
favorite
I just
thing
had a
in the
question.
demo.
Just a question for you. When you were talking about hunkering down and standing and kneeling, I'm pretty sure there's no hunker down function in this
no,
game.
but there is like an increased cover function.
There
there
is?
is.
Because there's
Yeah, if-
only a stand and kneel button. There's
If
no
you
other
kneel,
button.
if you kneel behind cover, you get more.
right,
But it takes
okay.
more. It takes more points actually.
It takes more
That-
time units.
Right.
see.
Yes. It
I
it
was just
actually
very
takes more time
confused
units,
by
and
that.
I'm gonna get to some of the systems a little later. But like, there were some funky things with it, like some of the pathing too. Like going off of what was just said, the whole you can't tell exactly how far you're going definitely bothered me, because one of the things that happened to me more than a few times is like you can vault little walls in the game, and in theory it takes only a little bit of amount of time points. Like if you got a little wall to get past, one of your soldiers can kind of alley-oop over it. But sometimes it doesn't work properly. So I would path my guys to the other side of it, and I'd tell them, jump the wall. And then instead he, would walk the entire long route around the wall and waste his entire movement turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think
Go ahead. I don't have anything to say. No, go for it.
do you guys want to finish that conversation off really quick? Because I was going to start off
I was
with
just going to talk
something else.
about the hills a little more because
Oh, God, the
that brings
hills.
us to like the elevation changing stuff in the game. And I understand the point of it, and it makes sense that you change the elevation. But with the hills, it would have been nice if when you were selecting a unit on a hill, you could still see things that were at the bottom of the hill. Like,
Yeah.
it was so counterintuitive to have a unit on a hill, know an alien was there, and then just not see him and be like, oh, wait, I have no idea where this alien was. And there were times where, like, my camera would move, and I'd have no idea where I was because of the elevation, even though I'd just seen a guy next to him do something.
It made sense with the buildings. Like, I was like, okay,
Yeah,
first story,
yeah.
second story, got it. But, yeah, when you got to, like, the hills and stuff like that, oh, God, it was
It was
I had
impossible
no
to
idea.
know like when the breaking point was of like you could see
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
So I was really surprised when I played this game about the fact that I liked the overworld stuff more than I liked the combat, which was surprising to me as somebody who usually not hates, but I don't like games too much like Civ 5 or the Total War games where you're having to do that kind of micromanagement of an economy and doing that kind of stuff. I would much rather play StarCraft 2 or Warcraft where you're kind of just jumping in and doing the combat stuff, or turn-based combat where you're like Final Fantasy Tactics, you're not worried about your economy or any of that part of it. You're just like equipping guys and fighting, and the fighting is the most fun part to me.
Fair enough.
So I went into this really thinking that that's the part that I was going to like the most. And I didn't. Like, I really, really didn't like the combat. Like, it was very... And it wasn't just this kind of like, oh, it's easier now in games, so I don't know how to do this combat. It was more like the kind of like advantages that the aliens had over you, and the not being able to know, like, again, back to our continuing ongoing discussion of feedback systems. We've kind of talked about that a little bit already with this game, about like you didn't know where you were going to move or if you had line of sight or that kind of stuff. Like, the combat was just not satisfying to me, and I found myself 9 times out of 10, like, anytime I'd kill an alien, instead of feeling like, yeah, that was awesome, I would be like, oh, Jesus Christ, here we go. There's my 1 shot out of 10 that hit the alien.
Can I make a point after this? Because this was one of the big points I wanted to make.
Yeah, make your point.
Okay, well, this is just what I wanted to talk about, which is the kind of randomness of the game. Yeah, do the nuke drop.
Nuclear launch detected.
You can't announce the sound effect by saying "do the nuke drop."
I'll just cut it out.
Do the sound effect yourself.
Well, all right. So Night Train's going to drop a nuke here. So one of the
nuclear
biggest
launch detected.
Wait, Jordan, did you say you were going to drop a nuke here?
Nuclear launch detected.
All right, we're done.
Okay, so one of the things, and as somebody who really likes strategy games, this really bothered me. Like, I walked into this knowing XCOM is kind of like the legendary strategy game that really defined things, and it really drove me crazy. And the thing that drove me the most crazy was the RNG, which is the random number generator, which is essentially the randomness and the risk in the game. And exactly what Sean said, I felt like a lot of the difficulty and a lot of the reward of this system came from the random numbers and the luck more than anything I actually did. So oftentimes when I killed an alien, unless it was like I pinned 3 guys on him and just managed to totally outflank him, more often than not I was like, okay, wow, that was lucky, that shot hit, or wow, that was really unlucky, that shot hit, and now my guy is dead. And RNG is good in a game. Like, RNG is fun. It makes it replayable. It makes it random. It makes it fun. What's problematic is that in this game and in the new one to an extent, the RNG is extremely punishing. And so, like, when I was playing, I never had a soldier that actually had, like, missing health. They were either fully alive or they were dead. Or if they got shot and it didn't kill them, they usually panicked and then shot themselves and then they were dead. Like, the first couple times I researched the med kits because I figured that would be useful, and then realized even like the sergeants and the well-armored guys still died in 1 shot to pretty much anything, so I didn't even bother with it anymore.
Yeah, the random calculation of damage bothered me too. Like, my guy, I just got so used to my guys getting hit and dying that, like, when they got hit and didn't die, I was like so dumbfounded that I had no idea what just happened.
And so, and it was that, and the combination of it was so easy to kill your soldiers, and the fact that the difficulty curve of the game ramps up whether you're ready for it or not. Like, all it would take is 1 lucky shot by an alien to kill like 2 or 3 of your best soldiers, and then you were done. You couldn't continue that game. There was no way the next time they attacked a city or something that you'd have well enough soldiers to be able to handle it. And so the problem was, when it was like 1 or 2 hours into the game, I didn't really care. It's like, whatever, I'll start over, it's fine. But when I got like 4 or 5 hours in, it just seemed like a grand waste of time because I didn't feel like I was actually making choices that were making me any better. I felt like most of it just came from this luck. And so what I really liked that the new one did, and I promise I won't harp on the new one very much, is that while some shots can insta-kill you and, you know, bring you to half health, most of the shots take like 2/3 of your health. So then the choice becomes, it brings it back to an actual choice, as opposed to like, okay, well, now my guy's dead, let me move on to something else. The choice becomes, okay, I've got this guy who's wounded, and if he takes 1 or 2 more shots, he's going to die. So I either have to pull him back and make a tactical decision, or make the tactical decision to keep fighting with him. And I was hoping the game would be like that. But because it wasn't, because it was always, I hit the alien once and he's dead, he hits me once and I'm dead, none of that tactical stuff existed. You know what I mean? So that was my thing. And it was frustrating, and it was random, and the choices didn't really exist.
I think one other thing to mention was that, I don't know about you guys, but every single time I had the opportunity to shoot with a weapon that had the rapid fire shot, I used it. Because the probability was almost always guaranteed higher with the rapid fire than any other shot, and that kind of struck me as weird.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to touch on like how it's because this is a random number generated game. Like, if you look at like UFOpedia, there is an accuracy formula. Like they have calculated out this formula on how well on what a shot will be like, and I just think like that is ridiculous.
No, and it's cool. I like that I like that there was the depth in the game. I like that existed. The problem is the RNG was the focus. It was less about, like, strategy games should ideally be you having to weigh options, and maybe you don't always know how those options are going to turn out. Like, if you're playing a Civ game, your choices shouldn't be like, okay, am I going to attack this guy and then randomly we're all going to die? It should be like, okay, I can attack this guy, maybe it'll work out, maybe it doesn't, or maybe I move over here and then maybe they surprise me with something I didn't see. But it's about managing the choices that you're given. The problem with this game is that you were asked to manage choices you had basically no control over. You know what I mean? Like, those shots, yeah, I mean, it was because it was so punishing. You know, the choices were always life or death, and it made them, you know, less valuable in that respect.
Well, yeah, so Josh, Evans, I was going to say, Evan's comment makes me think, do you want to talk a little bit about the systems behind the game?
Yeah.
Because you did some research into that.
For sure. I mean, the thing is, first off, there are bonuses and negatives to rolls. Depending on your cover, your weapons, so on and so forth. Your soldier's will also comes into it a lot, which is kind of strange because your soldiers can gain or lose will depending on what happens. So, for instance, if a soldier around them dies, they lose will and then they become sort of shaken and they miss shots more. If an enemy around them dies, they in theory gain will. But it's a very iffy system because they can also panic as well if their will goes low enough. And then they have a tendency to shoot each other or themselves.
Right.
Yeah, that was always very annoying.
The other thing is, depending on what difficulty level you're starting on, the game automatically gives you bonuses and negatives. If you're on easy, there's no change. If you're on normal or higher, it starts actually taking away from your soldiers' rolls and giving that number to the enemy rolls.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know,
I didn't know that.
I don't know the exact numbers. I had them at one point, but it's like, you know, if you're on normal and you get minus 10 to every one of your shots, every enemy gets plus 10 to their shots, which really, on the higher difficulty levels, just becomes incredibly punishing, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but that's the point of the higher difficulty levels, is to be punishing. So I don't see any problem with that.
Let's take it a step further. A lot of the difficulty comes from, there's a lot of just kind of cheap things. For instance, aliens don't have a range on their weapons. If they can see you, they can shoot you. Which gets kind of strange because, you know, for instance, if you're not within, you know, 8, in theory, grid spaces, and the grid is very hard to see and hard to define and everything, you know, if you're not within 8 grid spaces of a sectoid, you can't shoot it, but they can shoot you from 12 as long as they see you. They have a kind of squad sight thing where if any enemy on the map can see you, they can shoot you. The other thing is...
Do they have a range loss, Josh? Like, if they're further away from you, do they lose less accuracy?
They don't,
yeah, they lose
actually.
Yes, they absolutely
lose
accuracy.
But it's so negligible that, you know, you're basically going to get hit if you're not in cover.
I think what Josh is trying to get at is that it's definitely an AI and a system that's rigged to beat you. You know
right.
what I mean?
This
it's rigged
this
to
was
give
something
you
that
an
you saw. This was something that you saw in games of the time in general, like, you know, Warcraft 1 or StarCraft 1, or like, a lot of those earlier strategy games. They had those same kinds of systems because AI just wasn't as complicated as it is now. So they would make the AI pretty simple and then just give it a lot of bonuses. Yeah, so it would just make money faster than you or that sort of thing.
Every single game I played, right, I always gave up first blood in every single mission. Like, one of my guys was always the first to die. I never found an alien and killed him before they killed me.
So and don't join Josh's army.
That's right.
Apparently. Holy crap.
I swear I'm a good commander. Now strap these bombs to yourself and run in. No, but, you know, one of the things is they can shoot you before you see them. And it's kind of weird that they can attack you from off screen. Their sight range is much bigger than yours. So I would always move a guy to a place. I was like, okay, he's in cover, he's relatively safe. And then out of the black, you know, fog of war, 2 plasma bolts to the head, guy goes down. And I'm like, that's funny. There was no way of knowing anyone was there at all. And then I
was just going to comment on that point that you were talking about, Josh, before you go on. I think it could have been interesting if maybe, like, it could have made sense that, like, there's some alien race that has way better vision than us and could maybe see longer than us. But I don't think it makes sense that every single enemy has a longer sight range than you. I think it could have been an interesting mechanic to have, like, one that has, like, supervision. And that's, like, immersion-wise, because I know this is such an immersing game since aliens attack all the time and you can empathize.
If you're in
I think that
Mexico,
could have been
you
interesting.
think they do?
right?
I agree with that, Skylar. And the other thing I just want to make is kind of funny is that the rookies, like your starting soldiers, seemed absolutely useless. One of the things I pointed out is that my weapon experience in my life consists of shooting a crossbow a handful of times at the Renaissance Fair, and I am 90% sure I could shoot an assault rifle better than pretty much all of these guys.
They're all blind.
Yeah, it just seemed like, I mean, I recognize, again, this is random number generated, but it's just kind of funny that you had like these little genetically similar alien guys that are carrying these tiny little guys that carry these huge guns, and they hit me all the time, but like my top of the line recruited from around the world, best soldiers everywhere, like with an assault rifle, can't hit somebody that's like 20 yards away. You know what I mean? I just thought it was funny.
Here's the other thing is, somewhere...
That's one of those.
I like it. Somewhere when they were doing the meeting for this game, and somebody's like, all right, what happens if our players outnumbered and they need to retreat? And the president flipped the table and goes, fuck retreating. Retreating's for bitches. And here's the reason why. The aliens get a bonus called Remembrance, and this is really bullshit. If you leave an enemy sight radius for 3 turns, they can quote-unquote remember where you are and still shoot at you. Huh. So let's say you're in a
and 3 turns is a long ass time in this game.
That's a
like
long.
Most of my missions were over by like 7 or 8 turns.
Right.
So let's say you're Revolutionary War style fighting in lines, because you can. I don't know. You just are, and you're like, oh god, my men are dying. Let's pull back. So you pull back in theory out of sight range. So fog of war is still, it comes back. You can't see the aliens. In theory, they can't see you. According to the game's program, they shouldn't be able to see you. Yeah. Except, oh wait, they can, because for 3 turns, they quote-unquote remember where you are. And this is where it gets a little weird is, they don't really remember where you are, because if you move, they can still shoot to your new location. It's like they have a psychic link to you for 3 turns, and they can shoot you anywhere you go. And I found that to be a little game-breaking, because it's like, there were times when a cyber disc would show up, and I had to pull back for better ground, and it just didn't make a difference because they could pop me no matter where I was.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep,
Yeah,
I agree.
I think. Yeah. All right, Evan, do you want to throw something in?
No. Like I mean, I was just saying. Like I agree. Like I did one mission where literally after I took about like 4 steps out of my ship with about 2 different
you got
people.
shot and killed. Yep.
Well, not even that. I started getting shot at. And then I noticed, and as my next turn starts, when you see an alien, you get those little numbers
Right.
in the corner of the bottom right corner of the screen. So I had 4, and they were all cyber discs. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like,
that's what
there
we
was
call
a
an
terror
RNG
site,
failure.
Yeah.
I went to go save the city under attack. I think it was Seoul, which I think is kind of funny. And like there were 4 cyber discs all hiding behind like pillars and walls and corners, and I just got massacred completely.
I think the only conclusion we can draw from that is that the Koreans are working with the aliens.
Right.
That explains how good they are at StarCraft.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to another segment here because our time is slowly running out here. I assume this episode might be a little bit longer than our other ones, just because I want to talk about the new game a little bit too. But I just wanted to play
before we get to the new game.
No, we're not going to do the new game.
Okay, okay, good. Never mind.
What did you want to bring up, Josh?
I wanted to say just the systems of the game for 1994 really advanced.
Yeah.
Especially how deep all of the research stuff and base building went. That was really complex.
I think that's one of the most fun parts of the game. I think that
the base building is
so
awesome.
much stuff you could get and research, and like every time I got something new in research, I was like so interested to know what it was and like get it. And because there's so much cool stuff in the game, and it like went so deep.
One of my favorite things was that like you recovered the bodies and the resources from the UFO attacks. So it was nice that, because the UFOs would show up randomly, and one of the things that also drove me crazy is you never knew what you were going to face. Like, it would tell you, oh, this is a small UFO, this is a big UFO, but, small UFOs could have 5 sectoids sitting there around the door, so as soon as you opened it, you're dead. And it could have, like, 2 that are wandering around in the field. So you had no idea, but it was nice that every mission you did had some relevance to the base building. Like you got in, you won
I
it,
agree.
you got the corpses or the stun the guys or whatever, and then you got the resources which you could use to build new weapons to go out. That was like one of my favorite things
The
about it.
systems were super well integrated. The like battle thing and the overworld were so well integrated, and like both played on each other constantly, and it was that was really cool.
And
Yeah, definitely.
there was also all this cool little polish. Like, if you missed a shot, right, and the shot went wide, the projectile could strike somebody else. Like, if you were shooting at two enemies, in
hit a
proximity
wall
you
and
missed
open
one,
up a line of fire.
right? You could hit another enemy, or another thing you had to be careful of. If you had a soldier in front of another and you shot, you could actually kill your own guy because he was on the line of sight.
twice. Yep.
And the destructible cover, like Sean just mentioned, is another really cool complex system.
Yeah, I think that was pretty innovative at the time too. I don't think anything else had destructible cover.
I assume like worms may have existed at the time.
Oh yeah, that's right. I think the first Worms was out then. Yeah. God,
It
I
was
love
just
Worms.
super advanced though, and I found myself being blown away by how much thought went into it. Even modern games, like by those standards, I was like, "There's a lot in this game."
Oh, yeah.
They just
And it's
packed
like
it full of
16
systems, and
megabytes.
and it's clever.
It's the size of your, of your Skyrim's helmet's texture. You know what I mean? They fit all of that game.
It's probably smaller than that.
God, that's so
Yeah.
amazing. That's amazing.
I just threw something out there.
Okay,
Throw
all
me a
right.
frickin'
So
bone here.
we're gonna move on to this is a new segment that I'm gonna start doing. I'm gonna start capturing sound from these games. So obviously there wasn't a ton of dialogue, aka zero dialogue, to capture. But one thing that I wanted to grab really quick was just some of the sound. So let's listen to a quick clip of the
Please
music.
tell me it's a soldier death montage.
Or a sectoid death montage.
No, I didn't grab those. Mostly what I grabbed was music. So here we have
Oh, no death sound montage.
jazzy alien music.
The music in this game is great.
So that kind of sets the ambiance. I really love that
That
like
doesn't, that
whatever.
doesn't yell like 1990s. I don't know what to tell you.
All I could think of every time I heard that music was the last scene of Blade Runner, and then like
Yes,
I would watch my guys, take a shot in the head, and the only thing I could think of was time to dream, time to die. That's the only thing I could think of every time I heard that. It's great.
Okay, and then the other music that I captured that I absolutely loved. This was my favorite music in the game, so it's not too long. Here we go.
Yes.
I mean, wait. Can I throw some lyrics on there? Just play it. Fucking aliens in the face. We're in our Sky Ranger to save the human race. Get your guns up. Oh, it stopped. Never mind.
You can tell that Josh is not the musically inclined one.
You can tell that Josh got really into that music, though. It's like, donna. That was when the Interceptors, that music played every time you got into a fight
The ship
with a
fighting
UFO.
music. Yep.
Yep,
Yeah.
I loved that
Top Gun.
music.
Reminded me of ancient like Pokemon battle music.
Yes,
Yeah, right.
that's exactly.
Just
what
needed
it
like a
Get excited for our
Pokemon
quick
battle
attack
music.
segment then, Jordan, because that's gonna be there.
Pokemon battle music, wish it had that much balls. Like, that
That's
was
true.
some Kenny Loggins screaming
Dude,
down the
I
highway.
miss like MIDI music, like MIDI from game music.
Chip
was-
Chiptunes are amazing.
the best.
I
Okay.
do too.
Anyway,
That's why
so,
I play so many like retro indie games nowadays. It's just because they're full of chiptunes.
the music.
Oh
is
my
good,
god,
yeah.
shameless plug. I got to go see I Fight Dragons in concert,
Oh, I'm
and their
so
guy who plays the
jealous.
chip tunes. So good.
God, that band is so good.
Dang.
Check out I Fight Dragons. That band is awesome.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
never listened to them. I will have to check it out after
They're
this.
really
There's our
cool.
shameless plug, which they're in no way endorsed by us, but they're so cool. Oh my god.
Check out
Sponsor us,
check
I Fight
out their
Dragons.
cover. Check out their cover of Power of Love. That's my favorite song by them.
Yes, Huey Lewis. So good.
Yeah.
All right, but let's move on.
Really good. So anyway, I just want to capture some of that to show people kind of what the sound was like. I loved the music
That's
in this game. That was definitely my favorite part. Next time I'll capture more audio. I was just kind of time crunched for this one, but
No, that's
I'm
a
going to
really
start
good
doing
idea,
that
though.
for
I
shows.
really like
Yeah,
that
Yeah.
segment.
I'm going to start doing that
For
for shows.
everybody who goes, what are the graphics like? Because modern games and gamers say, does it look like COD? Does it have iron sights? The answer is it's from 1994. What do you expect? It's 8-bit graphics. It looks
1990 fucking 4, everybody.
Hey, that
1995.
3D globe, Josh. Come on,
All right,
that globe.
that 3D globe made me hard, but everything else,
Whoa,
it
okay,
looks
whoa,
terrible,
whoa, whoa.
and but The joy of XCOM doesn't lie in the graphics, and no, it doesn't have iron sights.
Okay.
So fuck
The
you.
only graphic
Okay.
I didn't really like was the explosion graphic. That just made everything
God.
look like
Oh,
crap.
so bad.
And lag.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
it did.
lag.
You drop so many frames with that explosion graphic.
The explosion.
Okay, so
my favorite
speaking-
was the explosion that looked like the skull. That was my best.
Yeah, oh, that one was good. Okay, so speaking of graphics, let's talk a little bit about XCOM Enemy Unknown, the one that just came out about a month ago. I played this game before I played XCOM for the show. So one of the questions that I have that I want to talk about with this game is it easier to play the old XCOM if you've played the new XCOM, or is it harder to go back to the old XCOM once you've played the new one? So I want to hear what everyone's thoughts on that. Think about that for a second, but I just want to throw out there. So a lot of the story is very similar in the new XCOM. The combat is more turn-based, like probably closer to a Final Fantasy Tactics type style, where
a little
it's a
more
very
streamlined.
specific grid. It's a little more of a streamlined battle system, but it's still very
There's
similar.
no action points. Is a very
Yeah, there's no
important
action points.
thing
You can
to
just move twice per thing. So you can either move and shoot, or throw a grenade, or move twice, basically.
I had an interesting. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and it also has a lot of the same base building stuff, which I really liked in the new XCOM, but I liked, so it was kind of flipped. I liked the combat more in the new XCOM, and the base building not as much, as opposed to in the old one, I really liked the base building, and the combat I didn't like. So it was interesting for me to see that flip. But let's start with Evan. Is it easier to play the old XCOM after you've played the new one, or is it harder?
Oh, I don't know. Like,
Well, so you played the demo of the new one after you played the old XCOM, right?
yes.
So, do you think playing the old XCOM changed your opinion of the demo? Because I know it did for me.
I think so. Yes, I think so. I think when I played the demo, I kind of knew what I was supposed to do already. Like, I guess when I started playing the demo, I didn't have the same feelings I did with the old game, because I was like, oh, like I know exactly what I have to do already. And then going back to the old game, I feel like because I think the new one is a lot more about cover. Like, it's a lot more about cover-based fire.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, what I notice is when you move to a new position of cover. You don't move out into the open. Like,
Unless you
that's
wanna
what
die.
yeah, like that's what I noticed most about the new game, is that when you were making your moves, that like it wasn't to just click on a random spot and go there. Like, you wanted to go to a certain like wall because it gave you a certain amount of cover. And I think when I went back to the old game, that kind of gave me a little more just knowledge about how to kind of place my units, I guess, when I started missions. I guess is the best thing I'd say, is I gained a little bit of awareness of how the game works when I can just get like a little more modern, streamlined version of it, I guess.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. I think though that the cover, like, I guess let's finish talking about Sean's point before we start talking about the comparisons. Or do you care if I go off?
No, go.
Okay, so what I was gonna say is that I think the cover-based system in the new game, how focused it is on cover, makes the fighting seem a lot more linear. Like, I felt like I was at a much larger disadvantage, which I'm not saying is a bad or a good thing, in the older game than I was in the newer game. And like, maybe it's better because if there was an alien invasion, I highly doubt you'd be at any sort of advantage. But yeah, I think it was really different, and I saw like a huge difference between the games. Not necessarily like a better difference, even though the new game is a lot more streamlined. The combat was so different that I think it's hard to compare them.
I agree completely. Like, I think that the new game isn't. It is the same style in the fact that it's turn based and it's the exact same game, but the focus is not the same as the
totally
old game.
different.
The focus
And, like, the
is
lack
all
of
about
action
cover based
points.
fire.
Yeah, the lack of the action points I think changes it too, because like I thought the action points made the old game really interesting and made combat like different than I'd ever experienced combat in a game before. Whereas the new game sort of seemed like every other turn-based
Totally.
strategy game.
I'm going to kind of disagree with that, at least to an extent. So I played the old one a lot. Did you say, of course? So I played the old one a lot and was really not liking it. Like I was playing this good game, I was playing through, and then I did the base, where you invade an alien base, got all of my soldiers massacred in 5 turns. It was terrible. So I was really not having it. And then I was like, you know what, whatever, I'll play the demo. And I bought the new game just a couple hours later because it was on sale and I was enjoying it so much. I put a ton of time into the new one. I think it is a vast improvement in almost every respect. And I think how I could sum it up is that I liked some things about the old one. I like the base management. I like the combat to an extent. The problem, or I guess the thing about the new one is I do less for the same kind of reward. I have to do less. So originally I wasn't a big fan of the cover until I realized it's a lot more streamlined. It makes more sense. I knew it allowed me to take away that guesswork. So it was less about, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to clear this field before I get shot at 25 times? And more about, okay, if I go to this cover, I'm this well defended, or I can dash all the way over to this cover and then maybe I'll have a shot over here. And the base system was kind of the same way. Instead of me spending all this time micromanaging how many scientists I had to put on one research project or how many rifles I had to buy for my squad or whatever, it just became, all right, if you research this is the bonus, or you research this, over researching that. If you want to spend your money building your weapons, you can do that, or if you want to expand your base, it became about the actual choices. And so
I thought that took away from the base building a lot, and I think Sean will agree with me.
I liked it because it was about the choices, and that was what is so fun about this game, is that they kind of took away a lot of
what's fun about both games, to be honest.
But I feel like the choices were more defined in the newer one.
Okay, but that makes it more fun for you. But I'm not sure if everyone would agree that having more defined choices makes the game more fun.
Oh, well, perfect time for Josh to throw in his 2 cents.
Do it.
Oh, God.
Do it. Please agree with me, though. Otherwise, don't talk.
As much as it causes me physical and emotional pain and years of therapy to do, I'm probably going to go closer to Jordan on this one.
Oh, my God. Anyone who goes close to Jordan smells really bad afterwards.
That's true. But, here's the thing is, I think that the new XCOM stays very, very close in heart to the old one. Yes. It's almost the exact same game with just some differences. They take out 1 or 2 of the things that I thought they really needed to take out.
Like little squares on the globe.
Yeah, but 1 or 2 of the really cheap things, like the ability for aliens to shoot you before they see you. Giving the aliens actual definable range. They got rid of a couple of things I thought was kind of broken. And they fixed a lot of things, and they really kind of streamlined the experience without losing too much. They made it much easier to pick up and know what you're doing without actually sacrificing any of the complexity. I feel like
they did sacrifice complexity, which is
wait,
we
Josh,
were just talking about with the base building.
They took away a little, and here's the thing, and this is the one big kind of gripe I had about Enemy Unknown versus UFO Defense, is that in UFO Defense, when you piss off the aliens enough, they will try and find your base and take it out. And that's where base building really got important, was, you had to build your base in such a way because you had to actually fight back through your base at certain points.
Right.
I never had a successful base defense, by the way. That fucking killed me.
Well, the layout of the mission would be the exact same layout as you actually built your base, which I thought was a really cool feature. Whereas they did actually kind of dumb that down for Enemy Unknown, because it's you just build your base to build it, you never have to fight it or defend it or anything, or build.
Well, you're also always on the offensive in the new game. There wasn't as much defensive strategy.
Well, can I just ask a question to what you're saying, Josh? Is that just the evolution of video games as a whole? The fact
$1 million question from Evan.
Yeah, right.
The fact that XCOM is more streamlined.
Oh, did we lose Evan?
I think we lost Evan.
I think he was going to say, it's more simplified. Is that the evolution of games?
But it's not simplified. This is my problem. This is my
on,
problem,
Skylar.
Sorry, I don't know how I did that.
Did you mute yourself?
I think so,
Okay.
somehow.
Finish your point.
Where did I get cut off?
You got cut off saying something about simple.
Oh, okay. Well,
Is that the
you
evolution
said the game
of games?
was more streamlined. You said they took out, big ideas that kind of made you frustrated with the old game, but you said it was still the same game at heart. But is that just the evolution of video games in general?
Okay, I have
is.
something to say about this. I have something to say. So
Okay, go for it.
Here's my problem. And Josh, this would be a good talk topic for one of your podcasts because we don't have enough time to get all the way into it here. But this debate about simpler means easier and complicated means harder. I don't like that distinction, and you see it in World of Warcraft. You see it happening in StarCraft 2 versus StarCraft 1. You see it happen in League of Legends and Dota, where it's like a lot of these debates are predicated around StarCraft 1 is a better game because it is technically harder to play, because it is more convoluted, and therefore it's harder and you're a better player if you can play StarCraft 1. And I don't like that argument. I think that it's too reductive. Can you make something easier by simplifying it? Of course you can. But I think it's too reductive to say that just because the old game is more clunky and doesn't have as good of a UI as the new game, which it's not fair to compare 94 to 2012, but you know what I mean. Like, just to say that it's clunkier means it's a better game because it's harder to play because your ego is wrapped up in, like, I'm a better gamer because I know how to play this hard game.
I don't think anyone's necessarily saying that.
No, but I think that is the question, though, is if I drive a car, right, in a race and I win, the race, am I a better driver than if I drove a car where I was missing a wheel in the same race? If I win,
wait, that's not a good analogy at all. You're
point is,
absolutely a better driver if you can drive without a wheel.
I don't necessarily agree because, and here's the thing: is the game behind XCOM, right? The actual difficulty in the systems between 1 and 2 are mostly unchanged. They play almost exactly the same way, and the same level of skill and difficulty, is present if you're trying to win either way. The difference is they remove the quote-unquote cheap things. But I don't feel like the cheap things add anything to the game. Another example of this is, we talked about this a little in the last games, the Persona games. If you've ever played the Persona games, right? One of the ways they add arbitrary difficulty to a boss is they give bosses instant kill moves. And it's not something you can avoid. It's not something you can prepare for. If you press guard on that turn, the instant kill move still kills you. So what it comes down to is it RNG if they use it? And I don't think RNG makes a game harder necessarily, or harder in a good way. If every 1 out of 5 turns a boss has a chance of instantly killing you and it's game over, and they just don't use it, I'm not sure that actually adds to the difficulty so much as it's just a cheap way of extending the game.
That's a really interesting point because actually, like in Dota right now, they're changing pretty much every ability that was completely random to be pseudo-random. In that, like, if you haven't gotten it in a while, you have a higher chance of getting it to reduce the randomness of a game. And I think a lot of games nowadays are heading away from randomness as much as they can.
And I think a lot of XCOM's difficulty comes from the fact that a lot of bad shit can happen to you that there's literally nothing you can do about. Yeah. So I'm not sure it makes it harder in terms of skill as so much. It's just harder to progress. Personally, I prefer games where they're very hard, but because I need to get the learning curve for it. Like, I've logged about 20 hours of Enemy Unknown, and for the first, 10 hours, my squads died constantly. And then something kind of clicked in my head, and I was like, oh yeah, this is the kind of positioning I should use. And once I understood what I was supposed to do, I could do it properly 9 times out of 10. The difference is in UFO defense, I know what I'm supposed to do, I just can't do it because it's, hard to do.
Well, that was the same conversation we had in Overlord as well. It was like, I knew what I strategically had to do, but the systems are what made it tough for me to do what I already knew that I had to do. The fun didn't come in figuring out the strategy. It came in exploiting or living among the systems.
Well, the other thing is just one last point on that before, Jordan, I'm going to turn it over to you, is there are games where the system being hard is a plus. Look at Devil May Cry or God of War or Bayonetta, where I know what I'm supposed to do in Bayonetta all the time, but sometimes I don't have the reflexes to do it. And that's fine, because it's that type of game. But XCOM is not about Twitch reflexes. XCOM is about
strategy.
Strategy, and if I'm using the right strategy and it only works half the time, there's something very flawed about that.
Yeah, I think
that's a very good point.
Yeah. And I think if we're going to look at kind of the difference between like what Sean's kind of original point was, with the complexity versus the streamline, when Josh is using his like thing about a car with no wheel, I don't see it that way. I see it as versus driving a race with a automatic car versus a stick car.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I thought.
That's probably better.
You were going to say, Josh, but then you did, and I was like, what?
Yeah, and so there are going to be people who argue that it takes more focus and more attention to drive that shift and know when to shift those gears to win the race versus somebody in an automatic car that shifts it for you has it easier. I think, though, when you're looking at something like that, and then, like Sean said, games like this have this all the time. And, you point out to WoW has done a big thing with that, and StarCraft and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, the point is to drive that race. And I think what a lot of games seem to forget is that you can give people that option to drive that stick. You know what I mean? You can give people options to make it complicated because there's fun in managing complexity. I like to play fairly difficult strategy games. I like to play Total War games on hard difficulty where the AI cheats and it's hard because managing that complexity and managing that while still being successful is extremely rewarding and it's extremely fun. That being said, when I'm forced to do that, especially from the get-go, it's not fun to me. And that's why I guess I didn't like XCOM. It's like if they had thrown that difficulty at me from the, like later on down the line where it's like, yeah, the AI is going to be punishing you, you're going to be thrown with all kinds of shit that you can't possibly manage. That's fine. The problem is I didn't get to make kind of the fun ground level strategic choices that let me build up to that point. You know what I mean?
I think that's an important part of roguelikes in general too, is that the game should be more fun. When the game is difficult, if you get more skilled at the game, you should be better at the game. Whereas I'm not sure if XCOM totally did that. Like, you could still be hindered by the systems even if you were good at the game, which shouldn't be the case.
Like, I got better the more I played. The problem is
The other thing is I actually liked the ramping difficulty. Like, the fact that the enemies get harder and everything regardless of what you're doing. I liked that. And I thought Enemy Unknown did a really good job of that because the more missions you play in Enemy Unknown, the harder it gets, and it does add a great sense of urgency. The problem in UFO Defense is the ramping itself is actually on an RNG, which is what I saw because I got really frustrated after one playthrough and I deleted my game and started another one. And in the third mission, I wound up with a cyber disc, and I was thinking like, ha 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 ha, no, like.
Well, let me say the difficulty in roguelikes is always randomly based, but it is randomly based in like tiers, whereas UFO Defense isn't really like that.
Well, and that's again, look at the new one where it's like, if you after X amount of missions and the X is random, you get floaters you get thin men, then you get floaters, then you get muttons, then you get cyber discs. But in UFO Defense, you could wind up with ethereals in the third mission because it just randomizes that.
Right, or a cyber disc, and you're just like, what?
Right, and it's just like, bullshit, That's not right.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. I guess I have nothing really to add to that. It's good conversation, I think. So, Sean,
cool.
You want to...
Yeah, Sean, you have any new topics we can go for? Anything you want to talk about?
No, I have myself muted because I was typing stuff into the chat. So here, give me 1 second to. This is.
All right. Well, here's Josh's fun interlude. Ready for a fun interlude while Sean's doing something?
Can I beatbox?
No. I love naming my soldiers silly things, and that's something I love. Is you can.
I love that too. That was so fun.
I named my soldiers things like Zoop Bop Biddly Bop, and
you should have just named all your soldiers Jordan, and then since you knew they were going to die inevitably, you would have.
I named a bunch of them after celebrities, and Jake Gyllenhaal actually scored about 8 kills before he went down to a grenade.
Damn, I'm not surprised by that.
Let's be honest here. The most dangerous and deadly of all celebrities proved to be true. Kevin Bacon killed a whopping 20 aliens without dying, and I was like, "Oh, Bacon, I love you so much."
In the new one, you know how you can give them all nicknames? It really, like, the one thing that really bothers me, and Sean's gonna laugh at me because we've talked about this, but like, it really bothers me that these are supposed to be like soldiers from all over the world, and they all speak like dumb American Marines, you know? Like we started off the mission, right? Like I was doing the tutorial in the demo, and I was like, okay, so they sound like soldiers, okay. And then there was the Japanese sniper who like turns around the corner and finds like the mangled guy, and she's like, in the most whitest American way I can think of, holy hell, this guy. I was like, okay, no. So now, whenever I get a soldier who like ranks up where you can give them a nickname, I find a cool nickname and I go in Google Translate and I put it in their fucking language, and then that becomes their nickname. And so I have no idea what half of them are, but it sounds awesome.
Oh my god,
really
you're
me.
so fucking ridiculous. So okay, so we're gonna we're gonna move on to our feedback part of the show. So I have a new bumper for this. You guys ready?
Stoked.
Captain's log, stardate 4523.3.
Captain, incoming message.
Love it.
I feel like we
that's
just
wonderful.
bastardized like 3 franchises right there.
Now
Exactly.
I want to read all our emails as William Shatner.
God.
I
What
am
have you
Text
done,
message.
Sean?
Made the
What have
show.
you done?
I love 5 on the 5. It's the best.
Show
Exactly.
in the universe.
Sean! 4 points to me.
Okay, that was the
Go
best
ahead.
thing that's happened this show so far. Okay,
All right, so we've got some emails and some reviews. Do we want to start with emails or reviews?
let's start with the email that we got.
All right, so we got an email, and here goes. Cue email. Hi, I'm McCrae. Don't worry about pronunciation. Everybody screws it up anyways. I'm sorry if I screwed it up, but I want to be everyone. I don't want to be alone. Yes, and I just wanted to say I absolutely love 5 on the 5. I'd been searching for a good, funny gaming podcast for a while and couldn't find one I liked until I stumbled upon 5 on the 5 about 2 days ago. After listening, I played Fear, having already played Overlord, and loved it. Thanks for introducing me to this great game. Well, thank you, McCrae, whose name I'm probably screwed up. We love you too, and we love your feedback, and if you have any games you want to suggest, send us an email and we'll take a look at them for
Absolutely.
sure.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be really good. We're always looking
Yeah,
for
definitely.
suggestions.
And one thing, just as a note, because this is going to come back at the end of the show, we're into doing games on goodoldgames.com because they have a $6 price point for almost all of their games. So the games that we do from GOG will be $6 instead of $5. So hopefully
So
they'll
feel
keep
free to
doing-
suggest those as well.
Yeah,
If you
feel
want
free
to take a
suggest
Sharpie and
those.
scratch out our name and change it to 5 on the 6.
Yeah,
Five,
if you
five,
can't
five
handle it,
ninety nine
that's
on the 5.
Yeah.
$5.99 on the 5. I don't think that works as well. Okay, so Evan, you want to read some of our 5-star reviews that we got in iTunes?
Yeah, sure. We have 2 reviews. One coming from Emery, who said, I was excited to start listening to a podcast from the beginning, and I'm very happy that it was this one. I love the topic so far and that they actually talk about the games. I'm looking forward to more of the nostalgic titles and cheeky banter. And we have
our banter is very cheeky. Yeah,
Jordan has huge cheeks.
That's where
Jordan's
all of our
fat. That's the
all
point.
of our banter comes from my cheeks. Yep.
Yeah,
Or from your
exactly.
mouth.
He stores it for the winter. Okay. Do we have any
And,
others
we
you
have
want
another review by Spider-Man Man 96, and he said,
Nice.
I love this podcast. It sounds just like the stuff I go over with my friends when we hang up and play games. Feel nostalgic with their titles so far. Can't wait for more. And it's great. I love hearing these 5-star review guys. Like, we always want to hear feedback on iTunes.
We love you.
When we hear feedback, that only helps us make the show better. So
Yeah.
please contact us in any way: email, Twitter, iTunes,
Facebook.
Facebook, and tell us how we're doing, I should say. And all that stuff only makes the show better for us and for you guys. So
Yeah,
Spider-Man,
yeah,
man,
definitely.
if you're listening, I have a question for you. If we're like hanging out with your group of friends, do you guys have a guy in your group that you hate as much as we hate Jordan? Because like,
If
Well,
you
one
don't
day-
have that friend in your group,
Podcast.
you are the friend. I'm just going to throw that out
What?
there.
right?
One day I'm just gonna like keep like a little tally here of all the times that unprovoked and unreasonably you guys attack my mother
Okay.
or my body or my sex life or my girlfriend or my
Oh,
intelligence.
Jordan mentioned his
Oh, wait,
girlfriend.
there-
we, need,
there
wait,
you go.
Sean,
Yeah.
we need a sound for Jordan mentioning his girlfriend.
That you realize that's number 3
Nuclear
that shows
launch
so
detected.
That is how Jordan's relationships go.
Oh, man.
What, everything dies in a 20-mile radius?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're going to move on to quick attacks, which I also have a new bumper for. So everyone get excited. Here's the quick attack bumper.
Pikachu use quick attack.
Okay. So,
My
we go.
favorite part about that bumper is definitely the simple text voice going, Pikachu used quick attack.
I was trying to find a clip from the show where Ash tells Pikachu to use quick attack, but I didn't feel like watching through 200 episodes of something, so I ended up going with that instead.
Yeah, true that.
No, I did. I tried to find one. If you find a clip where Ash says use quick attack, send it to me, because I'll put it in there.
Send it in and we'll give you a special thank you. And by special thank you, we'll say, wow,
I mean, Josh will do sexual favors for you if you send it in.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's
Let's be
not a
honest.
thank you.
Already. So
Who
it's
wouldn't
not
I
that
do
fun.
sexual?
Okay, so
Right.
quick attacks. This is our section of the show where you tell us very quickly about a game you've been playing recently and something that you think people should check out. Let's start with Jordan. What's your quick attack?
Oh God, you're gonna throw me. Well, I guess the obvious answer here is XCOM.
You
and
say the
Anthem.
new XCOM. Oh my god. I'm just gonna kill myself right now.
Good. That was entirely
Jordan,
the goal.
You've earned a punching in the dick.
All right. Well, that is the game that I've been playing. So, I just got the demo because I wanted to play it a little bit for this game, and it really looked like something I want to play. And then, I played through the demo, and I was like, oh my god, this is so much fun. So as soon as it came on sale with the Steam Thanksgiving sale, I got it, for 40% off or whatever. I've logged a ton of hours in the last 2 weeks, probably more than I should with finals, being in 2 weeks now. But it's really great. I really like it. Some of the things that bothered me from the old one bother me in this one too, but I'm absolutely loving it. Best game purchase I've made in quite a while.
Yes,
Well,
definitely.
isn't that good?
Sorry, I thought you were going to say something else about it. Okay, Evan, hit us with your quick attack.
That was my quick attack. It's quick. It was an attack.
My quick attack right now would probably have to be Batman Arkham City Game of the Year Edition.
Yes.
I picked it up during the autumn sale, and
Evan, can I just tell the story of that?
No.
Sure.
It's a great story. It's a great story. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, and I know this has been brought up in the podcast, I'm a really indecisive person. And so Evan was sitting there next to me when I was home for Thanksgiving, and he was like, oh, look, Arkham City's on sale. And I was like, Evan, get it. I'm the most indecisive person you will ever meet in your life, and I am telling you without conditions to get it.
Yeah, and I bought it, and in, a week, I have already clocked in 13 hours.
Oh my god, that game is so good.
And I plan to play for at least 10, if not 15 more of that. I have all the DLCs to play still. I have so much to do with that game. And Jordan told me he probably has 40 hours clocked in, and it's definitely worth it if it's ever on sale again. And every time they do a sale, it seems to be. So if you guys can, I would try to pick up a copy if you can, because it's way too much fun.
Can I just say, when I went to go see Dark Knight Rises in the movie theaters, the entire time all I was thinking about was, this is Arkham City the movie. Basically,
Yeah.
basically Arkham City the movie is happening right now. So
Yeah.
it was weird playing that before the movie. I'll be interested to hear Evan's take on it playing it after seeing Dark Knight Rises and seeing kind of some of the parallels. It'll be kind of interesting.
I've actually heard a bunch of people saying recently that Arkham City is the best AAA title ever released.
I don't know about that.
I don't know if
I've read a
I'd
lot
go
of
that
reviews.
far. It's a
there have been
phenomenal
multiple
game.
reviews that have said that. I
I
phenomenal
don't know
game.
anything about
Island
it.
Adventure is still number one.
That's not a AAA title. Those graphics are shit, yo.
Take it back.
No,
Take it back.
no, those kitties aren't 3D enough for my liking.
Sean, you need a bumper of a train derailing because that
I
happens
know.
so
Oh
often
my
in
god,
this
we
show.
need a train wreck. Okay, Skylar, hit us with your quick attack.
So, I guess I've kind of said this, but my favorite, I always love playing super difficult games, and that's what I live for, is really, really hard games. So there's this game called Super Hexagon that was an iPhone game for a long time. I have an Android, so I couldn't play it, and then it finally came out on Steam 2 days ago, and I've already played 6 hours, and considering this is a game where average session, an average game lasts less than a minute, since when you play for a minute, you
So
beat a
having
level.
sex with Skylar.
Ha! Jordan knows otherwise.
You added 30 seconds out of courtesy there, didn't you?
So anyway, yeah, Super Hexagon is amazing. It has amazing music. It's just like chiptune galore, and all you do is you're a little triangle around a hexagon, and you dodge walls coming towards the middle. But like, it's so well done and so well polished, and the first level is like impossible. I'm on the third level now, and it's ridiculously hard, and it's really fun. So yeah, you should get it because it's cheap as crap too. It's like $5.
Nice. Okay, Josh, hit us with a quick attack.
Josh has been playing the game called Real Life, in which you never win, you just work. But no,
I hate that game.
Being graduated from college, man. Work. What is this? No, but seriously, Josh has been playing a ton of Saints Row the Third.
Yeah,
I picked it up over the Steam Autumn Sale for $12 with all the DLC. And, well, let's take a look. After owning it for like 2 days, I've logged like 9 hours. Oh my god, is that game fun. And that's the thing, I draw a big distinction. I can't play the Grand Theft Auto games, and because A, I get really distracted and never do the story missions, and B, the story missions always make me feel like a horrible person.
Vice City was the only good Grand Theft Auto game because it was
story
crazy
missions
and silly.
aren't like ridiculous. Yeah.
Well, right, because it's crazy and silly. And then like I played 4, and I was like, I'm an immigrant, and I'm trying to turn my life around, and I'm so good. And then I'm like murdering old women for their purses, and I'm like, this is not the American dream I had in mind. And like, like I just feel really bad because they're not tongue in cheek. You become a horrible person, and the game rewards you for it. And I don't know. I get some people like that, and I don't have a problem with people liking that, but it's just not for me. But
Plus,
then
I got tired of my
get
cell phone going off.
Right, and then I get
Well, that happens
Do you
in
want
Saints Row
to play
the Third
bowling?
too.
No, shut up.
Saints Row the Third, the cell phone is so annoying. There's so many annoying people who talk to you on the cell phone in Saints Row the Third.
But my favorite thing about Saints Row the Third is it's so just over the top. Like,
yeah.
There's a game show on TV you take place in called Professor Genki's Super Ethical Fun Time Show, and like you
Super
run
ethical
around
climax,
shooting mascots.
bro.
Super ethical climax, right? You run around shooting mascots like sports teams mascots in the head while ethical displays on the screen, and you try not to shoot panda bears, and like it's hilarious. The opening game has opening of the game has you like diving out of a plane with a parachute on, shooting people in midair while they're trying to shoot you, and like the dialogue is hilarious. The game doesn't take itself seriously. Like, you're in a world where criminals are like super celebrities, and you fight a lucha libre who just like his name's Killbane, but it's really Chad, but he hates being called Chad. Like, it's hilarious. There's nothing not funny about that game.
This is not a very quick attack.
Yeah, seriously, you're the slowest quick attacker ever. Even freaking Snorlax would have outfed
your
you.
quick attack had a tangent. That's how quick. That's
Stop calling me fat. I'm moving as quick as I can.
Also, Josh,
double
Saints Row
ethical,
4 is coming out
triple
in 2013.
ethical,
penta-ethical,
quadra ethical.
Oh my god!
Wow,
Can we not make League of Legends
League
of Legends references?
That's my quick attack. That was a slow attack.
There are people here who throw up when they hear League of Legends references.
We should.
Jesus Christ,
Well,
everything-
actually, it started out as Halo. Josh was the one who decided to throw it into League of Legends.
Well, Josh would.
Okay, well that was
okay.
like that Raichu who didn't learn his quick attack when he was
No, that's okay. I'm just gonna add out some of your prattling. Don't take it serious, or don't take it personally, Josh.
Probably should.
Mostly because we're already over a minute, or we're already over an hour and a half. So my quick attack, I've been working a ton, so I haven't had a ton of time to play. I actually ended up playing Modern Warfare 2 a few days ago because a friend of mine inherited an Xbox from her brother, and it came with Modern Warfare 2, and she hadn't really played it before, so she decided that she wanted to try playing online, and it reminded me of how hard it is to go back into a game when the only people left in the online community are the hardcores.
Yeah.
Because
it's
kind of
games.
Yeah, it's kind of the same problem I have with StarCraft 2 right now. Is like, now if I go back in and try to play 1v1s, I just get demolished because everybody who's left are the super good players, and all of the like casual players have left by now. So it was fun. We got destroyed, but it was still really fun. And I always like playing objective games in Call of Duty anyway, so I don't really care about my kill death. I really just have fun doing objective type stuff. I think it's better for those kinds of games. So yeah, it was fun. And I didn't expect to be playing Modern Warfare 2 ever again, but go figure. So Okay, what else do we have to talk about at the end of the show? Just really quick, I want to let people know, we talked about this at the top of the show, but you can, we have a brand new, that was my phone, we have a brand new Facebook page, which is facebook.com/5on5 gaming podcast, and that's number 5. So go check that out. That's a good way to stay in touch. We'll post there if we're streaming, that sort of thing. I did not stream XCOM because I didn't have time for it, so I will be streaming our next game, though, so I'm sorry about that. But Skylar did a little bit of stream. So,
yeah, I streamed a bit of it.
You can also follow us on Twitter at 5on5 Podcast to know when the stream goes live, and just ask some general questions, like I asked people how XCOM was going, that sort of stuff. So keep an eye on the Twitter, tweet us back, and let us know what you're thinking about the games. Also, you can send emails to 5on5podcast@gmail.com. That's probably the best way to get in touch with us. We'll read emails on the show, and we want to hear how these games are going for you guys, because that's kind of the most fun part of it, at least for me it is hearing about other people's game experiences. So, next show...
We need to talk about our one-sentence reviews of XCOM, our short one-sentence summary of XCOM.
Yeah, that's right.
I was trying to get that in
Let's
Skype
do that.
going.
Let's do that after I introduce the next game. So that'll be kind of our little ending piece.
That'll be the ending.
I like kind of having that at the end. So next week's game we're going to be playing Rayman 2. Pick it up for $6 on Good Old Games or GOG.com. It's $6. I know we're breaking the 5 thing. Don't get mad. Except I'm mad because I like our alliteration. It's $5.99. Yeah, it's fine.
Technically.
But Rayman 2 is a game that I never played before, and I don't really like platformers, so this should be an interesting experience.
I'm excited.
So, yeah. Okay, so everyone, now we're going to do your 2-sentence wrap-up of XCOM. Let's start with Skylar.
Well, I would say that it's a difficult yet interesting game that is very fun at times and very frustrating at other times.
Oh my god, did he actually make one sentence? Holy shit.
I think he did. Okay, Jordan, what's your 2-sentence review?
Oh god.
Now the pressure's on.
Yeah, I was thrown off by Skylar's one sentence. As I was playing through XCOM, I wanted to like it a lot more than I actually was. And like Skylar said, there were a lot of things that were cool, there were a lot of things that were not cool, and eventually the not cool things piled up enough to the point where I couldn't pretend I was liking it much anymore, so I stopped. As a kind of piece of strategy game history, it's cool, but I wasn't having a very good time with it.
With a lot of commas and semicolons, that could have been 2 sentences.
Okay, Josh, what's your 2-sentence wrap-up?
I'm going to give my 2-sentence wrap-up as a haiku.
Oh, Jesus, fuck.
That's like 3 sentences, basically, though.
This game is very hard, but it is very fun to play. Fuck cyberdiscs. Seriously.
Wait, what?
It's not a haiku, but that's still awesome.
575. But yeah, fun game.
But fuck cyber disc seriously.
Yeah, seriously is not one syllable.
Seriously is 2 if you say it fast. So fuck you.
Okay. Good IQ,
that
Josh.
was ridiculous.
It works.
It was such a good start, and then you just...
Yeah.
You could say seriously. That could be 2.
You need
no.
Okay.
Seriously, it's 4. Okay, Evan, hit us with your 2-sentence wrap-up.
More. This is
okay, email us at 5on5podcast. Tell us if seriously is 2 syllables or 4. Okay, Evan, give us your 2-sentence wrap-up.
Kind of what everyone else has said. I really struggled to just immerse myself into the game. I think my favorite part of the game was just how like polished and how innovative it was for its time, and that like I felt that the most fun I had was like sitting and researching things. Yeah. But I definitely enjoyed it. I actually kind of want to after this go and play more because I'm like in the middle of like my game right now. So yeah, I liked it, but it's definitely not my favorite, especially coming from me who I don't really like strategy games. So yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, I really appreciate the heritage of XCOM. I'm glad that it existed because it meant that so many other strategy games that I love also existed. But I just got too bogged down in the systems to enjoy it. I think maybe if I would have played it closer to the time, it might have been something that I could have dove a little more into, but that just ended up being kind of too high of a barrier for me to really dive in. on it. But I'm glad that we played it. I'm glad that I know what it's like and what it is. And god damn, is that game hard. So if you're good at it, then serious props. But yeah, XCOM is good. XCOM is good. Just hard for me.
Also,
okay.
This week,
What?
don't forget we're actually putting out our sister podcast this week. I know we said we'd do it last week, but we ran into some difficulties with time. But yes, there are other weekly podcasts. Critical Hits will actually be on iTunes this week, so listen to us more often.
I just
once.
want to point out, by the way, that XCOM required 4 megabytes of RAM. That was the PC requirement.
Oh my god.
Modern gaming computers will struggle under the weight.
One calculator's worth, like one 1990 calculator's worth of RAM.
Yep, too much.
If anybody could port XCOM onto TI-84, I would
be
do something really nice for you
already.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. This was a great episode. Bye, Rayman. Play Rayman 2.
Rayman 2. Rayman 2.
Yeah. Bye, Rayman 2. Play Rayman 2. We will catch you all in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening. Bye.
I'm going to list that on my business card. Joshua
on your resume?
Esports and game design specialist.
Fuckable
face.
Certified fuckable face.
Body, not so much, but that's okay.
You know what? You know I have issues. Whatever.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's get this started back up.